Good morning, traders. It's Tuesday, March the 20th. Taking a look at the charts, we're going to just run through some the cycle analysis on a bunch of different charts and commodities here, just so you can get a feel for where things are going. More or less, we've got this here is the SP 500 futures, and you can see the blue line here is our projected kind of cycle bias or market bias for the markets. Where the blue lines go doesn't mean where price is going to go. It just means when they're trending up, we should see some buying pressure. When they are trending down, we should see some selling pressure. So looking forward here, you can see we might start to consolidate over the next week or so, and there's potential for the markets to continue to be under pressure. And we talked about March 15th being a top. More or less, the market topped out March 12th, March 13th. So a couple days early, but we did end up calling that way back here down right near the bar when the market put in a significant bottom reversal candle. We talked about last week more or less being a top before we see a little bit of a market correction or pause before it goes higher. Of course, we don't know how far it's going to correct. We just have to go one bar at a time and reanalyze on the fly. But at this point, it looks like the market has had a downward draft. We might see it stumble here and hold support. It is right through the heart of this oscillation here of these upswings and downswings. So overall, we could see the market sell back down. Now, if we were to actually zoom way back, go back to the last time we saw this type of price action, this is almost the same type of price action we had last time. Let me just go here, grab a marker here. More or less, we had a big crash just like we saw here in 2015. Then the market came up and got a little overbought. And then eventually it faded back down for a more or less a double bottom before making another significant run to the upside. And I feel like we are more or less right over in this area, somewhere in this area currently. And I think the market could continue to go down and be a little bit more under pressure before it puts in a significant low and puts in a strong rally. And then it was only a couple months later we had the same type of thing. Market came up, struggled near the recent highs, broke down in a huge way again, did the same type of thing, and we saw it come down for a double bottom again. I feel like the market is equivalent to somewhere in this area right now. So if I fast forward to today, you can see where we are at. Here is today. We've had the big sell-off in the market. Whoops, wrong tool. A big sell-off in the market. We've come back up, and here we are with more or less a market trying to top out here. I think we could continue to see it kind of flounder, potentially have a bigger drop and test these lows. But overall, we've got a downward bias for the next couple weeks. And then we could put in the significant bottom and see it move higher going forward. There's no reason why it shouldn't continue to go up, test these recent all-time highs, and or go higher. So let's just take a jump and look at some of the other things moving on here. We've got more or less the Toronto Stock Exchange cycles here show that more or less it's starting to roll over. We've got a downward bias for the Toronto Stock Exchange for a little while here. Again, pointing to potential fade back down or just a sideways consolidation. This downward move doesn't mean price is going to go down. It just means it's going to struggle to go higher. And we could very easily see price continue to chop around and flatline and become very dormant until more or less we get into a cycle low, and then that's when we could start to see the upward bias really take off. It doesn't mean price is going to fade all the way down and continue to sell off for that period of time. If it's a very strong, if this market is strong, it will just hold up and build a launch pad and get ready to go higher going forward. Taking a look over at, let's take a look at, if we take a look at the NASDAQ, we've got the same type of price action, more or less, potentially a little bounce over the next couple of days, but kind of a downward choppy bias in the market, a little bit more mixed with choppiness with the cycles here than the SP 500. And if we take a look, more or less equities are set to go down, but if we look at a little bit of the safe havens here, you can see utilities they've had a big sell-off. They've started to put in increased volatility, increased volume, indicating we are probably near some type of significant low. And you could argue here that we have got potentially this inverse head and shoulders formation with this neckline across here. And you can notice while the equities markets are set to show increase in fear and sell off, we've got our cycles showing to rallies and higher prices for utilities. And we've seen this happen many times where the stock market becomes weak, people become scared, they shift into these boring utilities that are always going to be needed no matter the economy, and they do pay dividends, and money should flow into here. So you can see we're testing right at this level here, we're right at this breakout zone, this previous high. We're doing a little tiny bull flag here. Utilities look like they're getting set to perform while the rest of the market starts to underperform. Moving over to, let's take a look over at the dollar. The dollar is in a downtrend, and if we just grab this tool here, we've seen it's been moving down. We're in this larger bear flag formation. We talked about this yesterday, that the dollar could continue to oscillate and trade potentially even higher in this bear flag until we get some cycle high, which is still about a week and a half away, and then we could potentially start to see the dollar sell off and move lower. Today, the dollar is trading up fairly sharply, and that's putting some pressure on precious metals today. So let's take a look at gold. Gold down 0.5%. Still got a little bit more downward cycle bias or downward pulling in the market. Hopefully gold will hold its ground right along this support level across here. If it can hold its ground, potentially even poke to nominal new lows, as long as it doesn't crash and unwind, there is potential. We are up here. We've got this distance here. Whatever the distance is of this topping formation is the potential distance for it to drop, which would bring it down somewhere near a double bottom, and that would definitely cleanse the precious metals market. But if gold can continue to hold up as it has until we get this cycle low here, we could very easily start to see a rally take place. This is a nice bullish formation in the grand scheme of things. This is a very nice bullish formation, and it's just flagging here, a very nice flag that could lead to a very nice rally in gold, silver, and gold miners. If we take a look at the GDX, the gold miners, same type of thing, a little bit more downward pressure. It doesn't mean price is going to sell down. Again, metals and gold are all holding at more or less support. They're all trying to hold this ground, and as long as they can kind of hold this ground until we get this a cycle low here, which is about a week or so away, then we could start to see the market break out and start a significant rally going forward. Looking over at natural gas couldn't break through resistance. We were looking for a nice big breakout. It just couldn't break through this critical pivot level, which acted as support here. Support became more or less resistance, and then support broke through it again, and more or less it got to this level very close to a big breakout. Couldn't do it, and it reversed down, and more or less now we've got a downward bias for a little while in natural gas here. Looking at gold, crude oil up 1.6% this morning. We've talked about this, how it's had this little bullish formation. It's rallied up, very similar to what gold is doing. It's just forming this little bull flag. It started to break out a couple days ago. It's picked up speed. This morning we're starting to see it pop, and you can see we've got potential here for upward bias for another week and a half or so. That could bring us up to this previous pivot high in the market. And we've kind of got the market trading in this. This is going to be the range we're expecting crude oil to kind of trade in between more or less the 59 and 66 change area. At this point, it could put in another little double top. We could very easily see it pull back and move lower. But if the US dollar starts to break down as we anticipate, then we could actually see crude oil break out and start a big run up into the high 70s, potentially later this year into the 80s, and catch a lot of people, I think, off guard. I don't think a lot of people are expecting it to go that high, but long-term charts suggest that is a high probability play. A couple other random plays here. Take a look at the BAL ETF. This is the cotton. More or less, it looks like the cycles here are pointing to lower prices. It feels like we're putting in a double top. We had a big gap up, huge sell-off here a couple weeks ago, bounced back up, and more or less it's breaking below as of yesterday. This recent topping formation, very similar to over here. And double top formation, we've got cycles pulling to the downside, so we could very easily see BAL ETF continue to pull back and sell off for a few weeks here, potentially as a potential short play. Another one, let's just take a look over at NIB, which is the Coca ETF. More or less, looks like it's trying to put in a top. We've got increased volatility, meaning we are seeing some uh, expansion. We're seeing price gaps take place. We're seeing gaps to the upside getting sold off hard. We're seeing huge gaps back up in a rally with a tight little range here and then a big down bar. Feels like it's trying to put in a top as well. We might start to see it chatter, maybe have a little bounce over the next couple days, but it looks like it could be topping as well. And there's a gap window right through here. Gaps tend to get filled, and we could very easily see this bounce and break down and sell off and move back down maybe to this 26 level, which is fairly significant pivot high here. You can see it also was grinding through this area, trying to eat through this resistance, and then it kind of picked up speed and exploded. So this 26 could be a potential downside for that as well. Anyways, that's it for this morning. I'll talk to you in a little bit. Bye-bye.